Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Jackie Norris, better known as Traveling Jackie. She has her own podcast called the Jump Podcast. She has over 13,000 followers on Instagram, and she's very well known within the travel community. So we welcome Jackie to the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed on your website, travelingjackie.com, it says over 2 million downloads on the podcast. Is that true? That's a lot more than I have.
It is. Yeah. Well, you said you've been doing this since 2014,
The
the podcast?
podcast about 2 years
Oh, okay.
before.
So that's the difference is that I have had my podcast since 2014. And actually, in the long life of podcasts, 2 million over 10 years is not that much, but I only have 170 episodes. So, yeah, it's actually something I'm quite proud of. We do quality over quantity over here. So, yeah, but it's been, 10 years in the making. So, yeah, it's about time to have that many downloads.
Good. Well, we're on audio only right now. I can see you though. You have a good mic, a better mic than me because I'm traveling. Does it have an elastic band on it though?
Oh, that's a rubber band.
That's a
Yep.
rubber band.
Produce of Mexico, it says. Yeah, no, it's just that's just holding it together because I've had this mic forever. But I would recommend it to you because I'm a traveler. This mic has been all over the world and back with me, and it's
Mm.
actually my second version. Well, it's the second one that I've owned of this exact mic over the last 10 years. This is all I've used unless I'm doing a handheld like in person, but yeah, this is like it used to be a $60 Amazon mic. It's Audio Technica and I love it. It's amazing and I always
Mhm.
get complimented on my audio. So traveling is no excuse. You can have one of these too.
I know. I have a ATR, which I guess is
Mhm.
Audio Technica.
Yeah, same.
It's like
Mhm.
$100, like the Tim
Yeah.
Ferriss one. But I just didn't bring it for the travels because I still have the original box. It's actually quite
Oh.
big. So
Oh,
maybe I
this
need like
thing.
a smaller thing to put it in.
Yeah, it has a tiny little tripod and it just folds up.
What
So
do you put it in? Like when you travel?
nothing. My bag, like
Just straight up like that?
yeah, it's pretty resilient. The thing that eventually broke when I was 4 years in, maybe 3, like constantly traveling
Uh-huh.
was just the connection of where the USB goes in, like it got
Yeah.
loose and I don't know how to fix that. So I just bought another one. I actually had a friend who was coming to visit me in Mexico and I had it sent to his house, so he brought it to me in true traveling Jackie style while I was out of the country. But yeah, I highly recommend this little guy. It's the best. It's my little companion.
Good, good. And where are you calling in from today?
Montana. This is my home
Montana.
base. Yeah, I actually I was nomadic for the last year, but I'm back. Again. So I can't really stay away from Montana. This is my chosen home stateside. So,
Ah.
yeah.
What airport do you go to?
Bozeman.
Bozeman.
Bozeman International, although I think they only do like charter flights to Canada from here, but yeah. it's it's up and coming. We always have to go through, Denver or Minnesota or Seattle or something cuz we're an extra flight from everywhere, but it's worth it.
What do you like about Montana?
It's I love it because it's super remote. Like it's not on the way to anywhere. It's not easy to get here and there's a lot of space and a lot of nature, a lot of big landscapes. It's called Big Sky Country. So, um we have so much like the quality of outdoor living here is insane. And that I live outside. Like I love adventure and being outside. And so for me, it really speaks to me. It's actually the same exact reason that I'm drawn to Patagonia because it's like it's an extra flight. It's got epic landscapes. It's like we're here at the 45th parallel north, and I spent a lot of time in Patagonia too, which is like around the
Nice.
45th parallel south. And so I see a lot of similarities between the two places. And I
Hmm.
love to shout out the remote places with big adventure and like really good beer and steak and dogs and fun people.
Yeah, makes sense. So you
Yeah.
started leading, or you, I guess probably for a while you've been leading group trips, including Patagonia.
Yeah, this is our ninth year. This is my ninth year of doing that. So I started that, well, 2016 was the first year that I did it. So maybe this is my eighth year. Um, Next year will be 10 years. That's no, it won't. It'll be two more years. Okay, so it's been 8 years. I'm not great at math, but it's not why I'm here. Um, yeah, I started leading trips 8 years ago, I guess. To started with Patagonia because it was the biggest place on my heart at the time. It still is, and yeah, like I was just telling you off record, we just launched another trip to Patagonia. We launched it yesterday, and that'll go next year. So yeah, it's one of the things that I've done to I mean, you'll understand this as a podcaster. This conversation, I mean, aside from you and me, we're having a conversation right now. The rest of it is one way. Like our listeners out there, shout out to all of you guys. You're amazing. But like we don't know you, like and I want to know them. And like
Mhm.
I've I've gotten over the years, I got so many messages and so many opportunities to connect with people like on social media or something, like these people are really out there. They're not just a number. Like this is, you know, this is a person who her name's Amanda and she's a pilot and she lives in Minneapolis and she follows my podcast. Whoa, like suddenly she just came to life for me. And so I loved discovering the people behind the numbers, behind just the listeners. And it's I mean, they tell me I have a big impact on them. Well, they have a huge impact on me too. And so I started it as an experiment, really, just to see if I put a trip out there, because this is 10 years,
Mhm.
like, I mean, well, 8 years ago, people weren't doing, now it's like, now it's popular that people are leading their own trips, but I was
Is it?
doing it like when no one else was doing it. I started
Uh,
it, just put it out there like, I don't know if this is going to work. We're going to try it. And yeah, 6 people signed up for my first trip and that was it. I hit the ground running after that. So,
and how big is your average trip size now?
uh
The
ch-
group size?
12.
12?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It depends on the trip because some are, I mean, the smaller ones are 7 to 12 and the bigger ones can be just over 20. But they're totally different trips, different styles of trips. So
Hmm.
most of the hiking ones are around 12-ish people.
Hmm. I
So
think we've only had one other group trip, actually two on the podcast. One guy, the travel junkie. I don't know if you know
mhm,
him. He's big on
I've heard
Facebook.
of that.
Yeah, travel junkie. It's this black guy, bald guy. And then the other guy is also bald. Is Ralph Velasco from
Okay.
Continental Drifter. Have you heard him?
I think I've heard of Continental Drifter, but I haven't. Yeah,
He
I don't
does
know
group
them.
trips for like I think it's like 45 or 55 plus crowd.
Okay.
So he kind of like,
Yeah.
and he brings, and he even does one to Antarctica as well.
Cool.
That they
Hmm.
go through Chile actually.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool. I think we'll
Yeah,
probably do that eventually, but I'm not quite there.
yeah. So something
Focusing on other
I'm
things
interested,
first.
I guess, to
Antarctica's
learn
a big
about
thing.
is I don't just kind of how to do group trips, kind of toying with the idea of what it would look like if my Latin life did something like that. We do meetups when I go to different
Mm,
cities around Latin America, Mexico City, whatever it is, we'll do meetups. But a group
mhm,
trip is definitely a level more sophisticated.
mhm.
I think it depends on the audience. My audience, someone's going to get way too drunk or something, but I'm sure. What does your audience look like? What's the split like male female?
Well, male, female, we have the people who show up on trips, it's 74% female.
Hmm.
Um, and it's mostly 30s and 40s, but we always have people in their 20s. We always have people in their 50s as well. But it's
Hmm.
usually like the outliers. Most of the people are 30s and 40s and mostly female, and everyone's from the US or Canada so far. That's really who we target too. So it's they're hard adventure. They're not. they're not really for everybody. They're really not for everyone. Because
Mhm.
we really get after it, like we're not going to a
Okay.
beach with all inclusive to sip cocktails. Like that's just you can find that anywhere. That's not my scene, and so that's not what I create. I design itineraries that are meant to showcase the best of the destination, the adventure that it has to offer, and get the people who have the mindset of, oh my gosh, I'm ready for adventure, like let's go get it, let's get after it. And so they're usually heavy hiking based or biking based or some kind of multi-sport. We're often also kayaking. We've done horseback riding, paddleboarding, snorkeling, like all sorts of different activities, but generally hiking and biking, multi-sport. So yeah, they're for the adventurous.
Wow. I guess you gotta. How do you coordinate like 12 mountain bikes for people? You go to. How would that look like?
Yeah, I actually work with I always work with partners on the ground. So I because this is the thing that I think most people don't understand is that logistic on the ground has to be excellently serviced. And
Hmm.
so I do not do that because I'm not there. I'm coming with the group usually.
Hmm.
Um I work with people who've been vetted in the industry that I've known for years that have connections that can offer the best of the best of the activities, and I work with them to create the itinerary, and then I sell it to my people. And so there's always a partner involved. And so we kind of co-create the trip.
Makes sense. And
Mhm.
sounds like you do Latin America, but probably a bit all over.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've done within Latin America, we've done Chile or in Argentina, and then we've done Ecuador and we've done Mexico. But we've also done Croatia and Italy and Jordan, and we're about to do Norway, New Zealand, and Greece. So yeah, we're a little bit all over. It depends on the activity. It depends on the destination as well.
Mhm.
My people tend to like big mountains and big adventure, and so I kind of curate adventures around that. And um, they're they're the kind of adventures that you wouldn't probably find on your own. You wouldn't be able to figure it out and do the logistics. Like we really get off the beaten path. We plan something that you just wouldn't do. Like you'd just do something else if you were there on your own because you're not finding the
Mhm.
same, corners and remote islands to kayak camp to and whatever. So we really try, and I really try and dig into the depth into the destination to
Mhm.
offer the best that it has to offer.
What did you do in Ecuador?
We went to a highland hacienda up in the Cotopaxi region. Like, I mean, you could see Cotopaxi from where we were.
Mhm.
And Ecuador was different. Ecuador was actually a retreat, a women's retreat that I ran a couple of times back 5 and 6 years ago. And so we stayed in one place and we did a bunch of activities from there, from this
Mhm.
highland lodge. So there was mountain biking, hiking. We hiked up to a refugio in the middle of Cotopaxi volcano, which was
Mhm.
like 16,000 feet elevation. It was intense.
You see that
We went
lake there, Quilotoa?
no. Kilo
Okay,
Toa is a different volcano, right?
it could be. It could be. It's in the
There's like
general area of
8 million of
Cotopaxi.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a ton of them all over. But yeah, on that particular adventure, we did horseback riding, we did a ropes course. We milked a cow. It was pretty fun because we were at the hacienda. It's like a working ranch hacienda.
sure.
So we learned how to work with the horses, and we did like wine tasting and chocolate tasting and Ecuadorian things.
Hmm. I like the aesthetic, like old colonial haciendas
Oh my
and.
gosh, yeah. Yeah, and the gaucho culture, like,
Mhm.
or we were in Chagra, sorry, excuse me, Ecuador, Chagra. It's like a different word in every country down
Basically
there.
a cowboy.
Yeah, but right, but it matters though. So yeah, we were all decked out in like the furs, like I mean, we'd call them like chaps, but they're like furs, and I mean, you ride in them, and ponchos, wool ponchos, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite an
yeah.
experience to get on a horse there and go into the backcountry just and let it gallop. And you've got Cotopaxi there and you've got condors overhead. And it's like, oh my goodness, like what's happening right now? Your mind is just blown.
Big landscapes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
And I'm sure your audience knows, but I need to know where in the States are you from?
I I'm I claim Montana as my home base.
Okay.
So, but I'm originally from Northern California, Lake Tahoe,
Okay.
and I mean, I grew up there when I was young, but I've been since I was 18, I've been traveling the world. I mean, it's been 21 years that I've been
I was
all
going to
over.
ask about this because Instagram, your tagline is 20 plus years traveling. That's
Mhm.
a long time.
I know. I started when I was a wee babe. I was 18 and I just knew I was actually a sophomore in college by then, which is I was kind of quick on the uptake. I was young for my grade, but I went to Costa Rica to study abroad because the only thing I really loved in school was Spanish, and I really wanted to learn it fluently. I knew that was my goal. I had a German exchange sister my senior year of high school, and she came and stayed with us the whole year. And when she left at the end of the year, I knew at that point I was going to go study Spanish somewhere. And she said,
Hmm.
wherever you go, go for a year. Don't think twice. That was that was like a pivotal like piece of advice that I received in my life because I took that as, this is the rule. I will not think I'm going to go for a year. Like I'm not even going to think about it. And I never did. I never thought twice about that decision. And as soon as I could, which meant I had to be able to sign my own paperwork, because I was so young, I had to wait till I was a sophomore. And I went to Costa Rica and I spent the whole year learning. I mean, I'd say learning Spanish, but I feel like I opened my eyes that year, like to the world. I learned so much, not just about how to travel, but about where I fit in the world. I mean, I was a minority there, right? Like they're all Latinos and I lived with a family and um I mean, yes, I learned how to speak Spanish so fluently. It was rolling off my tongue. People thought I was local, which I'm so proud of. And it was so amazing to finally get to that point. But I also became addicted to salsa dancing and the whole
Hmm.
adventure, on the horizon and traveling on the weekends and just exploring and learning. I couldn't learn enough. I mean, it was so amazing to be in an experience like that where everything was new and everything was I mean, just going to get breakfast is an adventure, like I mean when it's a new language and you're in a new town, I mean
Hmm.
everyone who's traveled has experienced this to some extent, but when it's a daily thing, when you're actually living in it, and I mean, you're going to school, classes every day, you're meeting people, I mean, having conversations in Spanish, dating Spanish speaking people, like it changed everything for me. And I really didn't want to come home. I felt like, wait a sec, this is me. This is who I am. Like this is where I belong. And I mean, I extended that trip. I extended it in the end by I think another month just to stay longer, and I finally had to come home, and home at the time was not home. I didn't want to have anything to do with where I had been living before. Everything was still the same and I was so different. And so that
Mm.
was actually the first time that I moved to Montana because that's where my brother went to school, and I moved up here to just do something else that was new because I was just addicted to this feeling of I gotta keep expanding. Like, look how much I learned. Like, look how much I changed in the last year. There's so much out there. I have so much potential. Like, there's so much outside the box. And so I just happily kept kept living outside of the box. And I mean, I've made it work ever since then, and it just snowballed. So after that year in Costa Rica, I randomly started learning Italian here in Montana, of all places. And then I went to Italy the next year and I did it all again for another year. And so I speak Italian fluently as well. And I mean, I was addicted to this immersion of
Hmm.
there's a quote that I love to share that's you live you live a new life for every language you speak. If
Mm.
you speak only one, you live only once.
Hmm.
This is true. It's entirely, entirely true because every time and I've done this 4 times now, I've immersed in 4 languages. And every single time I do it, you get to experience life as a in a totally different culture, like you're
Mhm.
learning the nuances, you're learning the people behind the images and the stereotypes and everything. And it's so incredibly powerful that I feel like I've been able to kind of multiply my life by doing that. And
Mhm.
that was what started all of this in the beginning, was just this addiction to um language, to learning language, to experiencing other cultures. And that is why I spent so much time in it before I even started. I mean, I was 10 years into doing all of that. I had already studied abroad 4 times, 3 times, 3 times at that point, before I even started my first blog. I mean, first official blog. I had one of those Blogspot blogs that's still online somewhere, that's like for my mom and friends, that was like, I didn't even use punctuation or capitalize things. It's just like, here's how it's going. I'm good, you guys. Like, I'm having fun. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, I started 21 years ago. We didn't have cell phones then. We really didn't. Like, not everyone had
Right.
cell phones. There was no Wi-Fi until like years into my travels. And so it was just a totally different scene back then. It was like, peace out. I'll see you guys later. And that's
Right.
how I
Back
learned.
then, when you set off from home, communication was a lot more limited. It was much more
Mhm.
diving off the deep end.
Yeah. Yeah, my parents used to have to call me with calling cards in Costa Rica. Like, it's so funny to say that now, because they used to have to put money on the calling card and we would call once a week. Like, that's how I would keep in touch with my parents. And then with email occasionally, but email, like the internet cafes, we used to go to an internet cafe to check our email back then. And so it wasn't even a
Yep.
daily thing. We didn't have to do things online with school. Everything was in person. And so, I mean, we would go to the internet cafe and I would write a big long like update email, and then the electricity would go out because there's a massive raging storm outside. And I'm like, well, so much for that. I'm leaving. And like, you don't even get back to the email. It's like, well, whatever. No news is good news. My parents have never been worriers, so that's good. But yeah, that's how it started. It's really different now.
And were you always such a good communicator, or is this something that you picked up along the way?
In what way? Like with
Well, I don't know.
with email?
You're very. No, I mean, just in general, you seem like you have good communication skills.
Thank you. I'm a writer at heart. And I mean, I've always written, even since I was a little kid. Like, I've kept a journal. I love words. Words are my medium. And as I told you, language is what I was pursuing all over this world. So I think that yes, like I think I've always been, communication is one of my things, and not just in one language, right? That's where I excel. I love it. We all know I'm not good at math already, but like words are my thing. So yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons that I've had success as a podcaster, because I can because I'm a writer, it's because I can express ideas and stories, and I guess that it's interesting. So I don't know. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are the other languages that you then learned? So, you did Spanish and then Italian, and then what happened next?
Next was Brazilian Portuguese. So I went and studied. I lived in Florianopolis, Brazil, which is way, way south.
Hmm.
And I actually, so after university, because I had graduated by then, in university, I did each of my Spanish and Italian for a year each. So I was in country for a year each. But after university, those were study abroad programs for students, right? And so once I graduated, I found these and you can do this anywhere, which is what is so cool about it. And I've done it twice now, but all I did was Google, um, you know, Portuguese language school probably in Brazil. And then it was really overwhelming. So I was like, okay, cool small towns in Brazil. Like keep going until because
Yeah.
I'm not a city person. I did not want to be in a big city. I mean, that's it immediately filters it for me, right? So I kept Googling, just kind of going down the rabbit hole until I found a language school in Florianopolis, which sounded really rad because it's on a small island connected by a bridge to the mainland. There's 42 beaches. I've never lived at the beach before. Even in Costa Rica, I lived in the mountains because I'm very
Hmm.
much a mountain person. And so I thought, I'm going to try this. And I signed up for the language school for just 1 month. But I also signed up to live with a local because that is absolutely essential if you're going to learn the language. You can't surround yourself with too much English, otherwise you're going to sabotage yourself in the whole plan. And
Hmm.
so I lived with this amazing woman who she was 30. It was amazing. I think I was 23 at the time. We were more like sisters than like a host mom. I thought she was going to be like a host, like I don't know. But we ended up becoming great friends. She spoke not a lick of English, not a word. And so I had to be really quick with what I learned with Portuguese. And luckily, it is so incredibly similar to Spanish. And with having my Spanish background and my Italian, it was so easy for me to learn. I picked it up
Hmm.
within like a week and just kept going through. I mean, by the time 1 month was over, I had graduated the school. Like there weren't any more classes for me to even take in 1 month, which was insane. But it's kind of like a magic, I don't know, superpower. I feel like that I have to be able to pick up these languages and have these amazing experiences in country. So that was next, and then the next one wasn't for 10 more years. So it was 6 years ago. I went to France and did the same sort of program, just a language school in a small town on the coast of France, the southwest coast. It was actually Basque Country
Hmm.
on the French side. And
Biarritz.
what? It right outside
Biarritz,
of
Bordeaux.
Biarritz,
Okay.
Anglet. So just north of Biarritz is a tiny little town called Anglet, and that's where I was. And I mean, I love a good small town. Although I will say, if you're in a language school, it doesn't behoove you to be in a small town if you want other people that are also on your journey with you, because it's really hard to study abroad. Like you well, if you're not in a big massive program with other American students where you're speaking English all the time, which I don't recommend. But I
Hmm.
I mean, you got you I would recommend finding a balance, because you want other people to be on that journey with you so that you don't feel so alone, because your brain will freak out at some point. It is so hard to be completely surrounded by a brand new language that you do not know and you're trying to learn it. It's like it's
Hmm.
so taxing on your brain. Also, you're living a life, you're an adult, you have other things going on that you got to take care of, like it's hard. And so being in a small town was even in Florianopolis, I experienced this where it was only me and like one other student, and you either get on with them or you don't, or you become friends or you don't. They've got their thing, you've got yours. And so it's kind of strange as an adult to go into a program like that
Hmm.
and then face the, oh my gosh, this is hard. Like there's nobody here to like vent to. Like I just want to like go get a glass of wine with someone and speak freaking English, like you get frustrated. Um so I do recommend maybe a little bit bigger of a school. But if you're a city person, done, easy, good for you. Like my next language is going to be German, and I've already decided that, well, gonna be. I shouldn't say that. I've already studied quite a lot of German, and I can, if you drop me in the middle of Germany, I can get by. I can speak. I'm not like fluent, but I can definitely have a conversation with someone.
Nice.
And that's without immersion, which I want to do the immersion next, and I've already chosen my school, and it's in Munich.
Hey guys, quick break from the podcast to tell you about job stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltze, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. You have criteria for how you choose new locations when you want to study a new language?
Yeah. So I generally I used to do small towns, right? Because that looks like me. I love being in the mountains. I need trails. One of the things that I've learned over years and years and years of travel is that when your home is changing on a daily basis, like when you're on the road, um, you need to bring your home with you in order to feel any kind, like in order to keep yourself to with your sanity. Like there's a lot that's out of your control when you're on the road, and so I think that there's a certain amount of routine that you can incorporate into your daily life
Hmm.
that helps you keep this idea of home on the road. When that is the food that you're eating, even every day, the music that you're listening to, the way that you work out every day. I mean, if you can keep some of these things consistent, then while the world is changing around you as you're traveling to different places all the time, you're keeping a little bit of that consistency, a little bit of that balance, which is really, really, really important. And so when I choose a place to go study, I want it to feel like home in a way, you know, like I want it
Okay.
to be I want it to have trails where I can go running or biking or whatever it is. Running is usually my thing because it's so easy to do when you're traveling. All you need is a pair of shoes.
Hmm.
Go. Um and I love small towns. Like I feel more comfortable in a small town. I'm not a city person. So yeah, when I have chosen Munich for my German studies, and the reason is because I've spent so much time there, and I've also learned that, you know, I want to have other students in my program. They don't have to be from, they're not going to be from my same country. They're going to be from all over the place. We're all over the world. We're here trying to learn German together, right? But at least there's somebody there who's on the same journey as you and feeling the same
Hmm.
frustrations, whatever.
Hmm.
But Munich is like a small, big city. And so I've chosen it because it's gorgeous. There's so much culture there. I love Bavaria. I've got friends there, and I know that there's a piece of it that really feels like home to me. And so that's going to be
Hmm.
my next one, but I don't know when that's going to be yet.
Got it. I'm curious, as someone that, has 20 years travel experience, you've mentioned a couple times that you don't like big cities. Is that
Mhm.
something, have you learned to not like them through traveling, or you've just
Mhm.
always not liked them, or, you
Yeah.
know?
That's a good question. I grew up in the woods. I grew up in a tiny town of like 6,000 people. I mean, my backyard was a national forest. So I am not used to sky rises and people on top of me. Like I'm used to quiet. I'm used to nature, and I get really overwhelmed and really anxious in cities. I've lived in cities, but not really in the US. I lived when I was in Italy for my year abroad. I lived in Torino, which is a million people. It's a city, but it's not.
Mm.
This is going to sound really funny, but there's almost anywhere I'd rather go in the world than New York City. Like New York City is so intimidating to me because it's just like a concrete jungle. There's just
Uh-huh.
sky rises and it's dark and it's cold and it's windy. And I mean, okay, sorry for everyone from New York because I know you love
No,
it.
I
I'm
get
super
it. I
happy
get
that you
it.
live there, you know, but like
I think part of it's the density, right? Of like
yeah,
humans per square mile, I guess. Where in
all of
Europe,
that.
it's still like pretty low
Yeah.
rise.
All of that. Exactly. Low rise. So that's when I was in Torino, like it wasn't a tall city. It's spread out and there's lots of people. And I lived in an apartment building that was actually, I mean, we called it the cottage because it was so cute. You know, it was like, it
Hmm.
wasn't sprawling. It was just a couple of apartments in one building, you know, and next door there was an Irish pub that I ended up working in. And like, it was cool to live in a city and have that experience of like, wow, you just walk everywhere and you take public transport. And I mean, that's a really cool thing. It's funny to be in the United States and like drive your car a mile to go to do something that's 1 mile away. It's like,
For
what?
groceries.
You normally would just walk that or whatever. And so no, it's really different, but it's always been that way. I have always been that way. And I think it's just because of my upbringing was, I mean, I was cage free, you know, I was
Fair enough.
raised
So what do you
cage
do?
free in the
You got
mountains.
a truck out there in Montana? How do you get around?
Yeah, I have well I have a Tacoma with a four-wheel camper on the back of it
There you
right
go.
now.
Oh, I saw this on Instagram. So that's yours,
Instagram,
eh?
yeah.
Okay.
I was living out of that for the last year. So I yeah. That was a first for me, was
This is a
trying the
good
camper
setup.
life,
This is
but
a really interesting setup that you have now that I'm looking
it's
more at it.
so fun. I mean, there's a
Looks
sink,
expensive,
there's
that thing you
plumbing.
have on the back.
It's expensive. But if you think about it this way, I did not pay rent for a year. And I
Uh-huh.
essentially then gained an asset instead of putting money into rent. If I mean, it was essentially the same in the end. And I made that decision ahead of time. That was the goal. Was like, if I'm buying this, I have to make it a year, in order to kind of make up for the payments of it. But yeah, I did it for a year, and actually during that time, I back to the city thing. I took it down to Arizona this winter, and I was because Montana winters are super harsh and long and dark usually, and so I wanted to get out of the winter, so I took my truck down to Arizona, and that was the closest thing I that's the closest I'd come to living in a city in the US, like a big city. I mean, the biggest city before that was like 300,000 people, and Phoenix is really big, so I was like outside of Phoenix um this winter, and but I was still living in the wilderness. I was still camping every night, and it was it was interesting. Oh my god. I'm offline. Reconnected. Okay. I'm just going to
Yep.
pick right back up cuz I think we're still here. I was just saying
Keep going.
it yeah, I can see that it has been recording, so I'm just going to pick right back up. Um it was really interesting being in the Phoenix Valley because that was, it's a big city, but it's not that intimidating. It's just busier. There's lots of people, and I was still in the outskirts. Like I was still camping every night in the desert, which I loved.
Hmm.
And then I would just go into town and use the gym. I mean, I play ice hockey, so I had an ice hockey rink and I had a gym where I would shower and like, it was so fun. It was so different and such a cool experience.
Wow.
But
So you got a hockey bag in your
yeah.
RV?
Yeah, in my truck. Yeah.
In the truck, you got a hockey stick and everything?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
skates?
Everything was I had everything with me because we
Yeah, you're
dressed in
talking to a
full gear.
Canadian, by the way, so
Oh, awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So you might appreciate this, but my all of my hockey stuff is like Tetrised perfectly into my old ski bag from high school. So it's not as giant as the hockey bags are. It's like a ski bag, which is it blows people's
Hmm.
minds, but it also worked really well for being in the truck.
Tell me about this is something I am going to do. I haven't done like I'm low key obsessed with the overlanding movement and living in your car. Um, so this is something I'm definitely working towards. What are give me some like rapid fire tips and epiphanies you've had from living in the truck the past year?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um Rapid fire. First of all, it's really really hard to be 24/7 365 out of your truck. It's really hard. Especially with a pop-up. So like if you had a van, I actually think that would be different because you can park in any parking lot, you can get up, you can walk through your van, you can
Hmm.
sit down and have a cup of coffee, you can get changed, whatever you need.
Hmm.
Um, in a pop-up camper, I can't even sit inside of mine without like it's tiny. Mine's really small. It's the smallest one that they make because my truck is a short bed. And so, and I mean, I did all the research before. I knew what I was signing up for, but it is a lot of work to pop up and pop down every single day. So like just if you're gonna do this full time, I mean, I did not have a house. I only had a storage unit here in Montana during that whole year plus. It ended up being like 14 or 15 months.
Hmm.
Um, and so I did not have a home base, so you become really dependent on, you have to figure out how to do your laundry and how you're going to get showers if you don't have the shower in your system, and so, it's very, very challenging. And I will say, on top of trying to run a business and doing normal daily life things, it's really difficult to also be providing for your basic needs food, water, shelter every single day, which most people take for granted. Most people who live inside of four walls with plumbing do not think about that. They know where they're going to sleep tonight. They know where there's water to get. They know where there's food in the fridge or whatever. Like it changes the game entirely when you're full time in your rig. But as long as you understand that going in and like you're ready for the adventure, like it is not easy, right? It's hard. And I would say there's probably a really nice balance in having an actual home base like I do now. Like I moved back into a house and I completely understand why most humans subscribe to walls and plumbing. Like it's amazing. Like you really got something going with that, right? But yeah, I think there's got to be a really nice balance between having a place to actually live, like having a home base, and
Hmm.
then having your adventure rig where you can take off. I mean, so far I've been doing it every week since I got back, or well, since I moved into a house, and I'm leaving again next week for a week, like just to
Mm.
go to go explore and experience and sleep in the camper. I love it. I love waking up in nature. Like you want to keep it so that both things are exciting, right? Like you're I'm so grateful to live in a house right now and I'm like so excited to go take my camper out next week. So that's a healthier balance. Um the other thing I will say about this cuz you asked for a couple rapid fire things is the people that you get to meet on the way are so freaking fun. Like these are your people, like I know especially as a solo female out there that a lot of women especially are nervous to do something like this, but it's not the people who make me nervous, it's the wildlife. Like here in Montana I'm way more nervous about what wildlife I'm going to come across in the woods than the people, because these are my people, the people that you meet out on the back roads, like with their rigs too. Like I mean, one of the first days that I was camping in Arizona, I heard of, I mean, I'm sitting in my camper drinking my coffee one morning and I hear, hello, good morning. And I like pop my head out and this guy's like, hey, do you want breakfast? We're meeting over there. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I went over there and we just gathered around. Like it was like a dispersed kind of camping area. And so a bunch of people just kind of gathered into the middle and we were drinking coffee and having eggs and bacon. And it was so nice. And it's so nice to remember that these are, these people are, we might have an age difference because most people aren't in their 30s doing this. Really, most people are retired and doing this like as a couple or whatever, but still, these are my people. I don't know if you can see me, but you're frozen. I'm still being recorded.
Hello. Jackie, you've definitely inspired me to move to a small town and get a Sprinter van or something with that I can stand up in and hit the road. And
Yeah.
I think, what we're doing is really incredible and underrated. A lot of people don't see the experiences, they only kind of see what we post online. But we both know that the adventure that we're having, even just day to day, is insane compared to what life would have been look like just, being a 9 to 5 or living in the suburbs and stuff. So,
Totally. I mean, if I can just add to that real quick, the
yeah.
moments that I was sitting in my truck in a parking lot, like waiting for my laundry to finish in a laundromat, kind of questioning, like, is this really what I want to be doing right now? But, every single moment, like even the not awesome moments, all of that just it expands your experience. Like, we're here to live, aren't we? We get one shot at this.
Hmm.
What are you capable of? What is your real potential? I mean, this is one of the things that I think I've just been pursuing for the last more than 20 years is like, what is out there? Who am I going to be if I go and do this? Because I know who I'm going to be if I stay. But I have experienced the change of this and that and the other that is so expanding of the human experience that is why I do what I do. That's why I'm here trying to inspire and encourage other people to get out there as well, because better there's no better way to learn about what you're capable of, about what your place is in this world, about what's happening in this world than getting out and actually going and seeing it, and experiencing it and meeting the people and doing the things and seeing what it is that you're drawn to on the other side of the world. How are you going to know if you don't go?
Hmm.
You know? So get out there, people. That's going to be my lasting words for you is just go. Book a plane ticket, just do something. I mean, rent a van if you want to try it for a weekend. Just see how you like it, before you I mean, you do this. Like you could do that. And just see how you like it before you go all in, but you don't have to go across the world to experience something new. You can try it first in your backyard, but the point is just doing. It's looking outside the box. It's opening your eyes and Mhm.
I do have one kind of last question for you. One thing we talk about is just how time slows down when you travel and you're having new experiences, right? Versus when you're in the same city for a year, it goes by in a flash. You've been traveling 20 plus years. Do you feel like 80-year-old grandma mentally, or you know what I mean? Like, does it
Oh my
feel?
gosh, sometimes no. Sometimes, I mean, I feel like I just need to rest, it's true, but I think what you said about time is so interesting because the thing that I find myself most paying attention to when I have just come back from like an epic trip or year or whatever is like, whoa, I have just done so much in such a short time.
Hmm.
And meanwhile, like for example, let's just do one little example. I just was in Europe for 5 weeks. 5 weeks in Europe. I went through the Baltics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, like way up north, um, for a week. I was on a boat from Lisbon to Barcelona, skipping along the coast of Spain for a week. I went to Mallorca and rode a bike for a week. And then I went to Andorra, which most people don't even know that's a country. And then I went to Austria and got on a bike and spent another week riding my bike across Austria. That's 5 weeks. And I did so incredibly much. And I came back and I'd ask people, like, how have you been for 5 weeks? And they're like, oh, I don't even know what happened. I'm like, whoa, you've been doing the same thing every single day for the last 5 weeks, which no judgment. It's just like, holy crap. Like I can see the difference of like, I just lived so much and did all of this stuff in 5 weeks. I mean, maybe for the next 5 weeks, I'm going to sit around and rest. Like, I don't know. And that's going to be perfectly okay. But the whole time thing, it's so interesting because it's how you choose to fill it. It's how you choose to fill it, and it
Yes.
feels so different when you're accomplishing and learning and expanding and experiencing and adventuring and like, oh my goodness, you have all these memories to last forever. And that was only 5 weeks, you know, like, whoa. So, yeah, in the last 20 plus years, my goodness. Mhm. I could talk forever about it.
No, I think that was a perfect example. Amazing. So, this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. My guest today, traveling Jackie. All her links will be in the description. Wherever you're listening to this, maybe it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, X, please be sure to like and subscribe. We put out 2 amazing episodes a week with incredible guests like Jackie. So thank you to Jackie for being here today. Thank you, the audience, for listening. Ciao for now.
Thank you so much, you guys.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Bit Refill. BitRefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. Introducing Rolf Haltza's Paycheck Multiplication Layering Method, a revolutionary approach that redefines the traditional career path. This is Rolf's new Done With You program, where he'll work with you to implement job stacking for yourself. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, are you ready to step out of the shadows of job insecurity and step into a world of career abundance? Then just click the link in the description of this episode, book a call with Rolf, and start walking the path of unleashing your earning potential with job stacking.